It's more
and the
about
kind of like
understanding how
hidden
welcome back,
motive.
everybody. Today we're going deep, deep into the world of street epistemology.
Ooh, exciting.
Yeah. And specifically, we're getting a behind-the-scenes look at how a course on street epistemology is made.
Cool.
Now, before we jump in, just a quick reminder. For anyone new to this, street epistemology is like this awesome conversational tool. It helps you explore beliefs without, arguing or getting all heated. It's more about understanding how people know what they know.
Yeah.
You can actually check out the first 6 modules of this course. It's called Navigating Beliefs at navigatingbeliefs.com. But what we're focusing on today is Module 10. It's still in development, and we're literally listening in on the guys who are creating it.
The masterminds.
Yeah. Reid, Rom, and Anthony. They're tackling a super tricky subject in this module.
Oh, I bet. Which is?
Relativism. That whole idea that truth is, subjective depends on your perspective. Like, my truth, your truth.
Oh, yeah. That can be a tough one. Yeah.
Big time. Because how do you even have a productive conversation when everyone's just stuck in their own little world of truth, right?
Exactly. It's like, where's the common ground?
Right. So we're tuning in on 4 days of their discussions from November 18th to the 22nd as they brainstorm how to actually teach people to deal with relativism in conversations. And trust me, it gets really interesting. Like, one of the first things they bump into is how to challenge this relativistic thinking without being, totally confrontational.
That's a fine line to walk.
For sure. They don't want to shut people down, make them defensive. It's about getting people to really think,
To self-reflect.
Exactly. So they come up with this strategy. They call it probing the limits, basically pushing those relativistic ideas to see if they, hold up. And they come up with these super catchy names for their techniques. I love it when they do that.
Yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so tell me about the Tic Tac test.
Okay, so picture this. You and a friend are counting Tic Tacs, those little white mints.
Okay, I got you, Tic Tacs.
Could there be 2 different right answers? Like, you see an odd number, your friend sees an even number.
No way. Counting's counting.
Right. It's objective. They actually started with colored Tic Tacs, but then they were like, wait, people could argue about color perception?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so they switched to plain white ones, no distractions.
Smart.
It's a simple way to show that even in things that seem subjective, we often rely on these shared truths.
I love that.
Then there's the wall test. This one's a little more, impactful.
Okay, lay it on me.
Imagine asking someone, if you really believe this wall doesn't exist, could you walk through it?
Ouch.
Yeah.
Oh.
It kind of makes you confront the limits of my truth, especially when it bumps up against, physical reality.
You definitely know if you were wrong.
Brett, no matter how much you believe you can walk through a wall, you're going to end up with a bruised ego, at least.
So we've got Tic Tac test for simple truths, wall test for physical reality. What's next?
The money test. This one gets into how relativism works or doesn't work in the real world, especially when we're talking about things that need objective standards.
Ooh, like money.
Exactly. Imagine you're at the bank and the teller, they shortchange you by $1,000. And they're like, well, my truth is you got the right amount.
I don't think so.
Right. We need some shared truth when it comes to money, fairness, legalities.
Here's good stuff.
Now, it's important to remember these tests, they're not about winning an argument. It's not about tricking anyone.
Right. It's about getting them to think.
Exactly. To see the potential consequences of their beliefs, maybe consider other perspectives.
It's about having a real dialogue.
And that's really the heart of street epistemology.
100%.
Uh-uh.
But I have a feeling there's more where that came from. What other ideas are Reid, Rom, and Anthony cooking up for this module?
Let's find out. So we're back. Still deep in the trenches with Reid, Rom, and Anthony as they build Module 10. Remember, they're trying to crack this nut of how to teach people to address relativism. But things are about to take a turn, like a deeper dive, you could say.
Oh, I love a good plot twist. What's happening now?
Well, they're realizing that beliefs aren't always just about logic and facts.
Okay. So what else is there?
Sometimes they're tied to our, well, you could call them psychological needs, our social needs, too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Think about those folks who are really into conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
It's like it gives them this feeling of, I don't know, being in the know, right? Like having this secret knowledge that most people don't have.
Absolutely. Or, someone who hangs on to a belief even when it's been totally debunked.
Yeah.
It could be because that belief is a part of their identity. Challenging it would be attacking who they are.
Yeah. It's not just about being right or wrong anymore. It's about how our beliefs make us feel, how they fit into our lives.
Exactly. It's about our sense of self, maybe our emotional well-being, even our place in a group. And this brings up a huge question for Reid, Rom, and Anthony.
It is.
Should they tackle this directly in the course? Should they address these, what did we call them? Psychosocial needs.
Whoa. Are they going to, like, give therapy advice now, along with the street epistemology stuff?
Not quite therapy, but they are trying to decide if they should, like, help learners actually identify these needs as maybe a hidden force behind some beliefs.
That's interesting. So it's like giving people this extra tool to understand why someone might hold on to a belief so tightly.
Exactly. It's saying, hey, maybe the usual approach of just looking at logic and evidence isn't enough.
Because there might be this whole other layer going on.
Precisely. It adds like this whole new dimension to street epistemology.
Okay, so I'm all for this new dimension, but how are they actually going to do this? Teach it.
Well, they kick around a few ideas, like maybe giving people a list of specific needs. The need for control, the need for esteem, belonging, and then like suggesting ways to deal with each one.
That sounds practical.
Right. But then they realize, people are complicated.
Of course.
And what works for one person might not work for another.
Plus, it could come across as a bit too simplistic, like a one-size-fits-all solution.
Totally. Plus, they're also worried about overstepping. Like, addressing specific needs might be getting into therapy territory.
That's a good point. Stay in your lane.
Yep. So in the end, they decide to keep the focus on helping people spot these potential needs, but without giving like specific advice on what to do about them.
So more like just raising awareness.
Right. Letting the learner figure out the what to do part.
Okay, that seems fair.
But here's where it gets really cool. To help people uncover those like hidden motivations, they come up with some killer questions.
I love a good question. Give me the goods. What kind of questions are we talking about?
All right. One of them is, when did you first come to believe this is how truth works? It's like digging into the history of the belief, seeing if it maybe came from past experiences or like the people around them.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one.
Then they have this other one. On a scale of 1 to 5, how important is it to you that everyone can have their own truth?
Whoa. That goes deep.
Right. It gets at how strongly someone feels about that idea, and maybe if it's fulfilling some kind of like deeper need for them, maybe to feel safe or to avoid conflict.
Like they're peeling back the layers. I'm liking this.
They even have a question that's like, what if you were totally convinced that everyone couldn't have their own truth? What would that mean for you?
Whoa, that's like next level stuff right there.
Right. It gets at what someone might be afraid of losing if they change their mind. Like maybe part of who they think they are.
But it's not about like making them feel bad, right?
No way. It's about encouraging real honesty.
Yeah.
And that's where street epistemology really shines, I think.
It's about creating a safe space to talk, even when things get, a little uncomfortable.
That's it. And that's what Reid, Rom, and Anthony are aiming for with this module.
They're really putting a lot of thought into this. It's not just about teaching a bunch of techniques, is it?
It's about the human side of it.
Yeah. It's about helping people connect.
All right, so we're back with Reid, Rom, and Anthony. And, they're really trying to make this Module 10 super comprehensive. So they start talking about, like, what if someone's just way too practical,
Too practical. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's like when someone cares more about if something works than if it's actually, like, true. They're all about the results, not the, the why behind it.
Okay, so like those late night infomercials, right?
Yeah.
It's like you just want that miracle gadget to do what it promises. You don't really care if it actually works the way they say it does.
Exactly. And this whole idea is actually like a thing. They call it being overly pragmatic. And Reid, Rom, and Anthony, they think it can be kind of a problem.
How so?
Well, they're worried that if you're not that concerned about whether something's actually true, you might fall for like misinformation more easily. You see something that supports what you already believe and you just go with it, even if it's not like based on good evidence.
That's scary. It's like your critical thinking goes out the window.
Yeah. You're not really evaluating things carefully anymore.
So, like, how do you address that? Do they have any, like, special techniques for dealing with people who are overly pragmatic?
Well, that's where they hit a snag. They realize this whole overly pragmatic thing, it's kind of intertwined with some of the other stuff they've already talked about, like relativism and low truth valuation. It's like all connected somehow.
So it's not really its own separate thing.
Yeah, that's what they're thinking. So they start wondering, like, do they even need a whole section on this? Maybe it just naturally fits in with the other stuff.
Less is more, right?
Right. And they even start looking at those techniques they came up with earlier, like the outsider test, and they're thinking, maybe those can be tweaked to address this too.
Oh yeah, remind me about the outsider test.
So imagine someone's like, it's totally fine to cheat on your taxes.
R-
Right. The outsider test is when you ask them, okay, what if someone you really cared about, like a close friend or your mom, what if they use that same excuse to like cheat you out of money?
Ooh, yeah, that changes things a bit.
Right. Suddenly it doesn't sound so good when it's happening to you. And they
What?
also talk about the box of truth again.
A what?
Oh, sorry, the box of truth. It's this like thought experiment where you ask someone, would you really want to know the truth, even if it meant like your whole world gets shaken up a bit?
Deep.
Yeah, it really makes you think about like what's more important to you, comfort or truth?
Well, this whole module has really been about getting people to think, hasn't it?
Mm.
To like examine their beliefs, see where they come from, and maybe like have better conversations about tough topics.
Totally. And I gotta say, it's been pretty awesome watching Reid, Rom, and Anthony work through all this stuff.
Yeah.
It shows how much they care about getting it right.
Yeah, they're not just slapping together a course, are they?
No way. They're really putting their hearts and souls into it.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, time to come up for air.
But before we go, I want to leave you with this. Remember what we've learned from listening in on these guys. Stay curious. Don't be afraid to question your own beliefs. And most importantly, treat every conversation as a chance to learn something new. Who knows, you might even inspire someone else to start thinking more deeply too.
Thanks for joining us.
And until next time, keep those minds open.